Welcome back to the semi-regular show. I tagged your Romney, and until the country decided that it's going to the cats, I was happily enjoying my retirement. As you may have heard by now, the Supreme Court has decided, if not already done so, to overturn Roe v. Wade. Yep, they overturned it, undermined it, carpet bombed it, neutralized it, criminalized it, knocked it out, stomped it out, choked it out, hung it out to dry, and then deep fried it for dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Or they will, once Justice Coney Island here can find a babysitter willing to do what her security detail will not. Honestly, with how destructive gender reveal parties are, I'm pretty sure big environmental damage lobbied for this decision to be overturned. But more to the point, because of this decision, we now inflict upon you for your viewing, let's say, pleasure, the semi-regular show's Abortionanza. Now, in 1973, as you may know, the Burger Court ruled in favor of Jane Roe over Henry Wade in Roe v. Wade and officially legalized abortion on the federal level. Now, the majority opinion in this case was authored by Chief Justice Ronald McDonald, and more crucially, this ruling was made under the right to privacy part of the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. This right to privacy justification was not because this pasty barbershop nonette were profoundly uncomfortable talking about anything even slightly relating to women's bathing suit parts and wished they would just keep it to themselves, but more because abortion was actually legalized in the context of doctor-patient confidentiality. What a doctor, advises their patients to do is their business. Although Roe v. Wade is still widely known as, the ruling that legalized abortion on a federal level, Casey versus Planned Parenthood was arguably just as important for determining federal abortion policy. This was a 1992 ruling made by the Rehnquist Court that technically upheld Roe v. Wade, but made two crucial changes. First, it changed the constitutional basis of the right to an abortion to the liberty part of life, liberty, or property in the Due Process Clause. Life, liberty, or property, coincidentally also being Justice Sandra Day O'Connor's version of Live, Laugh, Love. Now, the second change instituted by Casey is the undue burden standard. Now, this is a constitutional test used to determine if an abortion law is unconstitutional. Now, simply put, if an abortion law places an undue burden on someone seeking an abortion, it is unconstitutional. Of course, undue burden is as vaguely defined as Mitch McConnell's chins, which opened the door for some restrictions on mandatory abortion access, like mandatory waiting periods. However, abortion access was probably easiest at this point in U.S. history. This was partly because abortion was not the hot-button politicized issue it is, for worse, today. Pro-life Democrats and pro-choice Republicans used to walk this earth among us. Heck, Ronald Reagan, during his tenure as governor, even passed the Therapeutic Abortion Act that legalized abortion and laid the groundwork for its continued legality in Oregon, hoping that it would trickle down into California. But what best illustrates the fact that abortion was not the controversial, deeply partisan issue of today is the fact that the primary federal abortion restriction of the time, the Hyde Amendment, which banned federal funding for abortion services, had bipartisan support. Now, it was proposed by the Republican Congressman Henry J. Hyde, and the underlying logic was that if you can't count on the federal government to help you raise the kid, it shouldn't be able to help you get rid of it either, at least not until it's old enough to defend an oil well. Now, not only was this amendment supported by Democratic Congresspeople, but even the Democratic president, Jimmy Carter, was strongly in favor of it. And you'll never guess who else.
Biden also came out saying he supports the Hyde Amendment, which would, for folks who's not familiar, it would ban the use of federal funds for certain abortions.
These were votes that were taken in the late 80s, or in the late 70s, early 80s. And Joe Biden, in this case, did align with conservatives like Jesse Helms.
Yep. Old Smokey Joe Bisexual was in favor of the Hyde Amendment. Now, the Hyde Amendment, which was a pretty major caveat to abortion being legal on a federal level, could not technically stop states from funding abortion services and organizations like Planned Parenthood. However, what it could stop were people who relied on Medicaid for accessing abortion, which, and say it with me now, disproportionately impacted minority groups who often need ready abortion access the most. Now, even in states that did extend abortion coverage to people on Medicaid, which are relatively few, abortion was still pretty difficult to access. Compared to a pre- or post-Roe world, though, there might as well have been abortion vending machines. Now, indeed, despite the restrictions of the Hyde Amendment, and in spite of the strongly pro-life bent of the Reagan administration, abortion rates still skyrocketed in the 70s and stayed constant throughout the 80s. Interestingly, Reagan coming out as so strongly pro-life was somewhat unusual for conservative leaders at the time. The movement had been primarily spearheaded by the Catholic Church and Protestant evangelicals. But as the modern conservative movement took root in American politics, it needed an established voter base, so it started chasing the evangelicals, Jerry Falwell and his Moral Majority, which sounds like a downbeat clapping funk band. Now, there is one way to get the evangelical vote: restrict abortion. This evolution is especially visible with the progression of George H.W. Bush's stance on abortion. Now, he starts off his political career as the son of one of Planned Parenthood's earliest supporters, and he does cast himself as a family planning advocate during his time as a Texas representative. But as he rises in power as Reagan's VP and as president himself, he drifts rightward, like a 14-year-old who just discovered his first Ben Shapiro video. Now, while Bush's tenure as president did not see any landmark restrictive abortion legislation, his shift on abortion policy does reflect the increasing dependence of the GOP on the evangelical Christian vote. So, as abortion becomes an increasingly political issue from one party, what about the Democrats? Well, they remained remarkably moderate on abortion during the 70s, and the 80s, and the 90s, and the 2000s. In fact, the strongest pro-choice Democratic politician in the mainstream at that time was Bill Clinton. But what makes the Clinton presidency so important for federal abortion policy are his exact words on the subject of abortion. He's pro-choice, but the words he uses are safe, legal, and rare. Today, it sounds like he might as well have just said abortion. But those three words basically encapsulated the Democratic approach to abortion for the next decade and a half, even during the pro-life George W. Bush presidency. And we had a joke here, but we really can't top this.
And the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Ukraine. Iraq.
While we're at it, let's quote another old white guy on the subject of abortion.
Conservatives want live babies so they can raise them to be dead soldiers. Pro-life.
Where were we? Right, the GOP has made overturning Roe a top priority, and the Democratic Party has basically done nothing. And it was not until our melanin messiah, our well-spoken Washington wizard, the man who proved that under sufficient stress black does slightly crack just a little bit, Barack Obama, that things began to change. And Obama came out swinging for the pro-choice movement. The first thing he said he'd do as president was codify Roe by signing the Freedom of Choice Act. Codify Roe. All he had to do was this, and the U.S. wouldn't be in this mess to begin with. And of course, everyone knows that electing a black president solved racism in the U.S. But not everyone knows that electing this black president could have also solved abortion access. Sadly, with the time it takes Obama to finish even one sentence, he simply didn't have enough time to get to everything on his legislative bucket list. That's why, after 4 months in office, he still hadn't signed the Freedom of Choice Act and said, abortion is no longer my highest legislative priority, perchance. Yep, thanks Obama. Now, to be fair, it wasn't just Obama. There was also this guy, the man from whose nose Joe Manchin sprung fully formed, Nebraska Senator Ben Nelson. And just like Manchin, he derailed the Democratic agenda on abortion and reproductive health in general by being a contrarian in an evenly split Senate. Ben Nelson is essentially to Obama what Joe Manchin is to Biden, a Republican senator who also happens to be an Eiffel 65 stan. But even if Nelson had been pro-choice, it is unlikely it would have made the slightest bit of difference while queer-eyed Darth Sidious is still in the Senate, After all, he blocked Merrick Garland's nomination to the Supreme Court, speed ran Friday Light's confirmation hearing, and probably filibustered Ruth Bader Ginsburg's pancreatic cancer so it would take her out at just the right time so the court could be packed with anti-Roe conservative justices. So thanks, Obama, but also thanks Joe Manchin, Ben Nelson, Bill Clinton, Jimmy Carter, Joe Biden, and the other Democrats who allowed this mess to happen. Terribly sorry, but we just have word of a pro-choice rally being covered by our very own field reporter, Surya Namaskar. Let's cut to him. Thank you, Tag. I am here with two pro-choice protesters, Cindy and Nancy, and I have only one question for them. Can I, a cis-het male, get an abortion?
No, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. Not possible. If it's this hard for a cis-het male in the U.S. to get an abortion, how hard must it be for a woman?
Hello everyone, I'm Andrea, I'm the Vice President of Leland Lampoon.
I'm Sean, I'm the President of the Lampoon, and that was it, that's the episode. Thank you so much for watching, and as this is the last episode, or probably last production of any sort to come out of the Lampoon, of Leland Lampoon, permanently, unless some ambitious junior or underclassman decides to continue our legacy. We just want to thank you so much for watching the videos, reading the articles, or really just doing anything. I want to thank Mrs. Touchton for letting us use her classroom to goof off in during lunchtime. We want to thank, there's so many more members who aren't here right now, but ultimately, thank you for watching. Remember to laugh. Do you have anything you want to say?
So thankful for all the opportunities that you, as the Leland community, have given us.
Yeah, we fundamentally appreciate it. And even though we didn't do much, I am so incredibly proud of the things we did get to do. And it's been an honor.
All right, signing off.
See you guys.